Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins here. We got a special report. Things are breaking down in regards to disclosure, what's going to be happening around the corner, and we're going back to old school. Do you guys remember Rendlesham and what I've been talking about for many years? We shouldn't even be talking about it right now, but apparently there's some new information in regards to the Rendlesham incident. Apparently it could have been a big hoax after all, and we've got the panel tonight with Michael from Dark Hour Paranormal, including Dr. J from Dr. J Radio Live, and this news has been coming out over the past few days, and we're going to break it down, including the 180 days to disclosure. Is it going to happen? Are we going to find out exactly what the U.S. and the government knows in regards to these UFOs? Well, this is what Third Phase of Moon is all about. Buckle up, everybody. Let's just get to it right now. Let's just straight up go to Dr. J. He's standing by, and I want to get his thoughts real quick on this new article in regards to Rendlesham. Is it a big hoax? Can you break it down? Start from the beginning.
I got to say, it's a very interesting article, especially written by the British. This involves the SAS, which is the Special Air Services. If many people are not familiar with the British elite soldiers, the SBS, Special Boat Services, is essentially the SEALs, and the Air Services, which includes the skydivers of the sort, is the SAS. This article purports that an SAS soldier was, essentially the SAS team was testing the security out of Rendlesham Forest. And at one incident, they parachuted in and were detained by the Americans, and the American called them an alien. Well, they wanted to play a hoax on the Americans by showing them what a so-called, quote, real alien looks like. Well, apparently they rigged some lights and other things like that in the forest to draw them out there, and they had a kite. And essentially what you see there, that model, and they didn't expect Colonel Halt to have 18 minutes of recording going on at the time, and that's where things start to get ugly, because Colonel Halt is very upset, claims that he wants to put that SAS soldier and his team in place because he knows what he saw, while they're sticking by their claim that this was, in fact, a hoax on the Americans.
So let me get this right. So these pranksters apparently wanted to prank back the U.S. in regards to them being called aliens, and it was some kind of big practical joke to get back at them. Let me bring in Dark Hour. Dark Hour, what do you make of this article coming out trying to debunk this Rendlesham thing? What's your first thoughts?
My first thought is that the timing on this information that's being released, it couldn't be any more in sync with what's happening in the way of what we call disclosure today. In reviewing this article, I remember researching the Rendlesham Forest incident and, getting the whole perspective from many different people who were apparently involved or was witness to it. It's a story that's captured people's imagination for so many years, the way that Roswell has over here in the United States. That being said, I find it very interesting what the catalyst for all this is supposedly, supposed to be. These soldiers would parachute into the area. They were detained, roughed up a bit, and so they got all upset and decided, well, we're going to play a big, elaborate prank, and we're going to rig up lights in the forest, and we're going to have colored flares, and we're going to have a kite with a remote control. I just think that there's too much in the way of that detail that doesn't seem to stand strong with me. And I don't know why they'd be deciding to cover this up now with this sort of story, if indeed, and of course we have some contradicting evidence in the way of Colonel Holt, if this indeed did happen the way that we've believed it did.
This is my kind of speculation on things, is because this Rendlesham story has been always dominating the major news. Every single TV show you talk about or see on major media is Rendlesham, and they never really get to the new news of what's going on. Is this some kind of maybe way just to stop this whole Rendlesham thing and move on to what's going on now, or is there relevance? Do you think this Rendlesham thing was a big hoax? What's your thoughts initially, Dr. J?
Well, let's go back back to what originally Rendlesham was talked about and said about the three primary witnesses I've interviewed myself, Colonel Holt, we have John Burroughs and Jim Penniston. This is military, this is Air Force, and hence we give a lot of credibility to military, specifically Air Force, who are familiar with planes and military vehicles. Now, of course, if people remember the story is over the course of Christmas, it was 2 nights, Christmas on the 26th, 1980, and they went into Rendlesham Forest because of what was seen the night before, which was lights in the forest that were bouncing around. And when they got there the second night, aside from a beam like the size of a pencil hitting down the floor right in front of Colonel Holt as he's recording, they get into the middle of the forest and they see this black triangular craft. Now, upon touching it, Jim Penniston receives a message of binary code. He didn't know it was binary, by the way. He just knew it was a bunch of zeros and ones. And for the next few days, he couldn't get out of his head until he wrote it down. When he wrote it down, the image suddenly disappeared. And he also drew out in his notebook what the craft looked like and some symbols, I believe, on there. Well, 25 years or so later, when John Burroughs went to Penniston's home, and they were reminiscing and talking about it, they went through Penniston's notebook, and that's the first time ever that Burroughs or anybody publicly had seen the zeros and ones. And frankly, I didn't know about it because he kept it that much of a secret. He didn't think it was relevant. Well, as soon as Burroughs sees it, that's binary. So they bring it to someone who's familiar with binary, who testifies that it's impossible to write binary free thinking from your head and create a message that makes sense. Well, this plugged in, and it actually had words. And what it said was, it had different locations, longitude and latitude, and they happened to be like ancient locations, like ancient Rome, Egypt, things like that, South America. But one of them was High Brazil. And that was a place that was like Atlantis for the United Kingdom. And I believe it was off the coast of Scotland, an island that was with advanced technology and things like that, with riches that suddenly disappeared in the 1800s. They believe it sank or something like that. So all this story, like you said, was covered on the mainstream media, lots of interviews. Linda Moulton Howe even had a show for a few years with John Burroughs. So again, just like Dark Hour said, they are very upset, and this coming straight from SAS in UK today is the most mind-blowing thing. So I don't know what else to say other than that's the original story and that's the news story, and how does it reflect to this 180-day disclosure?
It's very bizarre because it is this countdown that's going on right now to the disclosure that's coming around the corner, apparently. And we're going to be showing this in our documentary, Countdown to Disclosure, the secret technology behind the Space Force. But before that gets released in February on the 16th, there's a lot of things going on in the Congress. There's legislation going on, and apparently an ultimatum to give us the information in this countdown. But getting back to the SAS and what they've been talking about in regards to this Rendlesham case, I wonder what they're doing over there and what their agenda is to bring this out right now. What's your thoughts on that, Michael, from Dark Hour?
Well, it's interesting that you had mentioned something along the lines of perhaps they are releasing this information so that we can put this to rest and move into more current events that are occurring in this field. That may be a very good possibility. And if that were the case, I would expect to see more things coming in this way and, people coming forward and saying, hey, it was this thing or the other thing. Is it possible that they're clearing out what we believe to be the real thing in order to bring in another paradigm of thought that actually reflects what we've always wanted to see in the way of UFOs and extraterrestrials? It's very possible. So I would keep my eye out and see what else comes, in the wake of all this information that's being shared between, General Ashed, our own countdown that Dr. J has just mentioned a moment ago, and, this Rendlesham incident that we now have new information about. We should really be paying attention to what's coming next and what might even fly and be released underneath the radar, away from the bigger media sources, because if they need to get this information out, they'll do it in one way or another. It may not be as direct as we'd like it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just strange that it did come out just within this past week in regards to trying to debunk the Rendlesham. What are they going to try to do now, as they always did before in regards to these UFO cases like Roswell? They just would want to debunk everything. But getting back to where this source information came from, I want to give a big shout out to Richard from GoofOn, who gave me the heads up in regards to this new information. Is Rendlesham a big hoax? I'm not exactly sure, but the statements behind the SAS, they're sticking to it. So it is very interesting with this new development. Now, let's get into this discussion real quick in regards to the 180 days to disclosure, and it's kind of already counting down. I think it's like 170 days now, but things are kind of lighting up because they have an ultimatum. They need to produce some information to the Congress in regards to what they know, what exactly is going on. What's your first thoughts when it comes down to this, to that day, Dr. J?
Well, you're right, absolutely right. The countdown has already started. I believe it was the 4th that it started, around there. And just like Michael Darkower was saying, that what if they are clearing information out? Now, if people start to come out, and the story that was floated years ago, that Roswell was not really extraterrestrial or anything like that, but rather Russian in origin with deformed children that had surgery performed to look even weirder, that were actually flying the craft, and they say, oh, that's what really happened in Roswell, then I would start to think that this 180-day disclosure countdown is going to be full of more lies. I would really hate that to be. And I would hate that to be the precedent that if this Rendlesham case was said to be proven a hoax, if other things start to come out that have another story that defies what hundreds and hundreds of witnesses from Roswell have said, then I'd be more worried about that, because this doesn't come in necessarily with General Eshed said. Now, what General Eshed said right before this countdown began was really an amazing thing, especially because he's as respected as he is. And remember what Harry Reid said, that we have a lot of answers that are so classified that we're never going to get to the bottom of anything if we don't start getting some of those answers out and merging them together with what's already known. For instance, we may know what the Tic Tac it was, or came from, or how it's propelled. We may have a few at S4 or something like that. But unless they release this information in the next 176 days or something like that, then I don't know where we're going to be. But I really am going to start hoping that in the next few days, few weeks, and few months leading up to June 2021, we're going to start to see some serious disclosures and declassifications of UAPs and UFOs, extraterrestrials, time travel, and all the supposed foo-foo stuff that was labeled so by debunkers for decades.
Absolutely. And I just want to give a big heads up, too, because with our movie or documentary, Countdown to Disclosure, coming out February 16th on all streaming services, Bob Lazar actually chimes in on a few things in regards to what went down on the retraction of the New York Times in regards to off-world covered vehicles not of this earth or something along those lines. But Dr. J, it's going to be crazy when you get to see Bob lay in on what's going on in regards to this disclosure. So let me ask you this, Michael. Do you think that we're really going to find out anything in 176 days, wherever it boils down to? Because what I'm hearing at the FBI, or the FBI is actually required to chime in as well. So what do you expect from all this?
Well, that's certainly the million-dollar question. And, I'm very much an optimist by nature, but I do tend to be wary when it comes to something like this. Are we going to get some information? Absolutely. Will it be information that we may be able to use in further our understanding of what's actually happening? maybe not. It's very plausible to think that they may pretty much just slap a folder in front of us and say, hey, this is what we've witnessed, but we've given you something to do on, so leave us alone for a little while. It's possible it could go that route. Now, on another turn, and somewhat in the line of what Dr. J is saying here, they may release some of their more classified vehicles and propulsion systems and technology that they've been using because, you know what, maybe for them it's sort of outdated and they feel safe enough that they can release this to the public and, they'll see how the public responds. I think it's interesting that this is introduced into a bill of current times that you wouldn't normally associate the two together, and yet there is this push from certain bodies, if you will, that say, hey, listen, we need something by this time, and we've given you this time to put it together, but we're expecting something. So I'd like to stay optimistic in the end and say, hey, we're going to get a whole bunch to really work with, and we're going to get some answers, maybe not all of them, but I also worry that it's going to go the opposite way, or what could happen is that they give us a bunch of the technology they've been using and then attribute this technology to every single UFO sighting in order to sort of eclipse the idea that these technologies may be coming from off-world.
Absolutely. I think that's what we need. Well said there, Michael. And I appreciate everybody joining us on this incredible discussion of what's going on right now across our planet. People want to know what is going on above our heads. Is it one of ours? Is it from another world? I think it's maybe both, and it might be combined. But I appreciate Dr. J for joining us. Any last words, Dr. J? And how can everybody find you?
Everybody just go to drjradiolive.com or specifically my YouTube channel, which is Dr. J Radio Live, DRJ Radio Live, and everybody can see hundreds of videos there. Lots, of course, appeared on Third Phase of Moon, and many more will come of top interviews and amazing footage. And I do want to say this, too. One great thing was when I was working with you guys on the clips that I was able to participate in Countdown to Disclosure was before the Countdown to Disclosure begun. So the title of the film was chosen months ago, and I want everybody to know that out there because the coincidence of the title of Third Phase of Moon documentary coming on February 16th and what's actually happening right now is the best coincidence possible, and it's almost like sixth sense, an instinct to title it so, guys.
Wow, absolutely. Yeah, when they came out with the article in the New York Post saying Countdown to UFO Disclosures, we're like, oh, okay, they're following us, because that was 2 days after we dropped our trailer for Countdown to Disclosure to the world on Third Phase of Moon. And again, it's going to be available worldwide on all streaming services February 16th, 2021. Appreciate that. And Dr. J, you be safe. Now, Michael, I know this was a crazy week, but where can everybody find you? I know you got some interviews coming up.
Well, I want to thank you, Blake and Brent, and of course Dr. J for this fantastic discussion this evening. You guys can find me on Dark Hour Paranormal on YouTube, and I want to encourage everyone to look forward to February 16th. As it's been mentioned many times here, Countdown to Disclosure is going to be one heck of a broadcast, a documentary, I should say. And you guys are not going to be disappointed with the fantastic work that this whole team has put into this production. So very much look forward to February 16th for Countdown to Disclosure. And once again, I thank all of you for this fantastic evening.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Dr. J. We're going to be supplying the original links below. You go check their channel out. Tell them Third Phase of Moon sent you. And in the meanwhile, you guys keep your eyes on the skies. Be safe out there. Blake Cousins. We'll see everybody next time.